This is the grand verbalizer, Funkin' Lesson Brother J, giving a big up to Hard Knock Radio. One love to the east.
Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. coming to you live direct from Hard Knock Radio.
Yo, I'm Anita Tijoux, and I'm come from Chile, and I would like to say hello to my friends of Hard Knock Radio, and I hope that you will have an amazing year, and los quiero mucho. Un abrazo grande, hermano.
On the move, this is Pam Africa on Hard Knock Radio, the station of resistance. Down with this rotten ass system. Stay tuned to Hard Knock Radio on KPFA.
Yeah. Picture this. Wake up the nations, we need ventilation of tainted information gathered in the bottom of a nuclear reactor. Nothing new or clear about the cloudy factors, shady tactics, army of paid actors, hard dry like cactus, black rain back in the day, pool disasters. We're putting our children at risk, dating with an asterisk, call up the activists. Greetings, some salutations, we give praise to the Almighty. Knowledge from the ancient offering, though some seek shelter in artificial stations, genetic mutations. The installation of a new plant, but this plant is no ordinary plant, no. She wouldn't yield a flower or shed green leaves. Instead she showers daily in a deadly breeze, spread like a zodiac sign after Gemini. The everyday workday folk like you and I once believed in this promise of a garden. Boy Adam, girl Eve of destruction. Technology, system malfunction. The angle is deep and the wheels losing traction. Who dare say they care about our safety as long as the food on their dinner plate tasty? No time for supper as we shall suffer the consequence. Might as well enjoy the last cup of tea if you prefer the taste of metal in your mouth. White blood cells on your face. People condescend, preemptive strike back across the cross. I guess it all depends which side you're on, whether you feel locked up or free to move on. Confess it all depends which ride you're on, whether you see pitch black or a light to keep on. And come on, yo.
Daisy D hanging out with you this afternoon, and all eyes are in the country of Japan right now. Our hearts and prayers go out to people who have lost loved ones. Many of us are not only mourning the death, especially those of us here in the West Coast, because there are so many people of Japanese descent here. Many of us have friends, and we're close to people that are going through and agonizing over what has taken place over this past weekend, the tsunami and the 9.0 earthquake. But on the other hand, a lot of us are also very concerned about what is happening in the aftermath. And what we're talking about is the nuclear power plants that are there. Every other minute we're hearing about explosions and gas clouds, and some people are saying, don't worry, there's no harm, and others are saying, hey, we better get some potassium iodine and what have you. But we wanted to find out from people that have been dealing with this for a very long time, before there was a tsunami and earthquake. And one of them is well-known popular hip-hop artist out of Japan. His name is Shingo, and he is on the phone lines with us. Shingo, how are you?
I'm doing great, although I'm concerned, yes.
Is your family okay, first of all?
Yes, because the actual catastrophe, as far as the physical damage and the human toll, that was rather concentrated in the northeast of the region. And, of course, there's been potentially tens of thousands of lives lost there. But still, the Tokyo greater area, it was still rock hard with the earthquake, but the human toll has been rather minimal, I would say.
Okay, compared to what we were seeing and all that.
Exactly.
Talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing around the nuclear situation. You were out there, putting out mixtapes, bringing attention, being well-versed in the situation. Mm-hmm. And what sort of work have you been doing around that?
Okay, well, it all came to attention in 2006 when we were campaigning against the dangers of a nuclear spent fuel reprocessing center in Rokkasho, which is actually north of the epicenter of this current earthquake. And what a reprocessing center is, you're actually taking spent fuel from all of these nuclear reactors There's 55 in all around Japan that has roughly the same size as California. And mind you, California only has 4 reactors in 2 locations. And
wait, repeat that again. How many do they have? Did you say 54? Did I write that down right?
Yes. Yes, depending on how many are currently active, they have 50-plus reactors spread all over Japan. And on top of that, they already built a reprocessing center to take all the spent fuel, transport it to one location in Japan, and they're basically remelting the fuel to basically extract more fuel out of it. But that process in itself was actually very, very harmful when you take the waste and dump it into the ocean. So we're campaigning hard, trying to educate the public about the ramifications. And while I was doing that, I realized that even during normal operations, God forbid a disaster like this would happen, it was actually very problematic to the environment, even without any official leakage or accidents. So then that's why I really started talking to scientists, reading a lot of books, and then I put out a report back then, which a lot of people are referring to now.
What was the reaction when you all started to protest and try to bring attention to your fellow countrymen? Was it receptive? Were they believing the government? Were you, what was what was it like?
Well, just like trying to convince anybody with a theory or an idea that's contrary to popular belief, it really depends on the person who's receiving that information, right? Like, you see that a lot happen in the United States. Mm-hmm. Like, if you were to talk to anybody off the street in California, they might be more open to an idea that the government might be doing this, or they might be hiding this from the people. So, as far as radioactivity and nuclear industry, a lot of people are already concerned to begin with. So if they are open-minded, they're very receptive, and if they don't really want to go against the grain, they just shut it out immediately.
So, did you have to show them examples to convince them? Did you have to...
Yes. I did.
And so, with that in mind, as you said, people are now referring back to some of the work that that you were talking about. Where do things stand now? What do you think people need to be doing? What should we be doing over here in California?
Well, long story short, the situation does keep changing, but now that we are certain that the effects that you see visibly and you don't see, we're actually getting readings over Tokyo, like it's reached 200 kilometers. And we're seeing simulations from foreign sources of where the plumes might be headed. Just to be on the safe side, I really couldn't understate how potentially harmful this could be to everybody that's living in Japan and even people outside of Japan. It's really hard to quantify something like this, because the main problem in convincing people what the effects could be is that when you receive low levels of radiation that resulted from fission, mm-hmm. actually wreak havoc inside your body.
So we're just talking.
Yeah.
So somebody like in Tokyo right now, if mm-hmm. you said because they're starting to get get these trace amounts in the air, yeah. even though you might not get sick immediately, this is starting to do damage already.
Potentially, yes. And personally, I would definitely advise for pregnant people and babies to absolutely not go out and leave the area if possible, because the brain damage or damage on the nervous system, you're basically susceptible to that. So more so than adults, babies and pregnant people, they really need to be careful not to even step outside. It's really that bad.
What about us here in California right now? I mean, First of all, are you confident in the information that's coming across the airwaves? Do you feel like maybe they know something and they're not fully telling us? And should we start, as I saw in the news this morning, start stocking up on potassium iodine, and people are trying to find bunkers and all kind of things?
Well, obviously, geographically speaking, not as much as people who are closer to the source of the spill. And if I may say something to the contrary, if you actually paid attention to radiation issues, we actually have been contaminating the entire planet the last several decades, including nuclear testing, all the uranium-related weaponry we bombard the Earth with in Afghanistan, Iraq, and we actually have been getting readings all over Europe and the United States. It's just that people choose to ignore it, one, because they don't want to deal with it, or two, they want to dismiss it, saying it's just a trace amount, don't worry. So the dividing issue there lies in the fact that people don't think that it's a big deal if you get a little bit.
If you're just tuning in, that's the voice of Shingo, very popular hip-hop artist out of Japan. We're talking to him. He's also an activist and somebody who is on ground zero in terms of trying to bring attention and warning people years ago about the potential effects of having so many nuclear plants in Japan. When you were doing this, you put out a mixtape. You were part of putting out a mixtape and really trying to reach people using quote-unquote hip-hop and popular culture to bring attention to this. Most of the time we say our peers, in our generation, we don't necessarily respond to the political messages that are put forth by the state, so to speak. Were they receptive in some of those efforts? Were we able to really change that type of conversation and amongst the hip-hop generation that you reach? Were they able to really relate once you all started doing the type of work that you were doing?
Yes, I would like to believe so. I did this work mainly with this producer named Ryuichi Sakamoto, who's also an outstanding activist. He's much older than I am. He won the Academy Award for producing the soundtrack for Last Emperor, and he's basically a rock star status in Japan. So it really wasn't hard to gather the attention. It was much harder to direct people. Now, what do you do now that we know we have a problem? So it was actually after the musical efforts that I really had to go back and write a report and put it out, which you could read. It's only in Japanese right now, I regret. But
I tried to look it up. I was like, my Japanese ain't good.
Yeah. It's on e22.com, but so like I said, once people get curious, they really want to learn more. So that's where I really had to step up and take responsibility and interview people firsthand, so I could relay the information and really get down to the points where how the government will tell you this, but it's actually this. And I've witnessed the same tactics all over the media after this current earthquake. Such as the increase that you see is really not much compared to background radiation, or it's not that much compared to X-ray, which you really never should do because they're completely different things.
Right. Let me ask you this.